Alright. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Hello, welcome to the Pig Daily, episode number 57, where we talk about Kelazhur's kitchen sink PVT. It was a toss-up between harassment overload and kitchen sink. Unfortunately, when you let Twitch chat choose the name of builds, they end up kind of funky. To be fair, though, it was my suggestion to call it the kitchen sink PVT. For anyone who's not a native English speaker or not familiar with the phrase, normally the phrase is you throw the kitchen sink at somebody, which is obviously ridiculous because kitchen sinks are normally attached to things and whatnot. Basically, it means you're just throwing everything at your opponent as hard and fast as possible. It's one of my favorite sayings because it really just shows that that mentality of just kind of going absolutely ham on your opponent, and that's what this build is about. So today we're going to be talking about this style where Kelazhur does a couple proxies, throws everything at the Protoss, and it's really about catching the Protoss off guard, throwing them off balance, and messing them up. Now, we're not going insanely deep on the analysis in terms of like complex, meta interactions. This is more of like a build tutorial episode to help out Terran players. Of course, we will try and consider all the other stuff as possible. If you guys have questions throughout, shout them out to me in chat using that x5_pig tag. I'll try to answer a few throughout, and any that we don't cover throughout, we will we will take a look at. So I do have it listed on Team Liquid as this being Cyan versus Kelazhur. We're going to be looking at those replays in a moment. Kelazhur invented the build. Uthermal actually copied it off him here at IEM Shanghai in the grand finals, where Uthermal became a champion for the first time at a big international event. So spawning down here in the bottom right hand side, we have Uthermal, and he was going up against Neeb here. This was game 4. Neeb. And I think Neeb had I think the scoreline was like 2-1 to Uthermal at this point, if I remember correctly. Anyway, let's start talking about the build. As soon as the game starts, Uthermal grabs an SCV, sends it out across the map, and starts proxying a barracks outside his opponent's base. You always want to do this sort of position where they can hop right into the main and jump in. Same on Galactic Process, same on Frozen Temple. And of course, you want to send the SCV around the edge so that their probe can't scout it. Now behind that, you've gone for a gas straight away. So keep in mind that's a standard 16 barracks, then a 16 gas, and then a 17-second gas. I'm going to have all the notes, by the way, in the Team Liquid thread, as always. So anyone who's like, oh, I'm too lazy to pause and rewind the video, there will be a written up list of the build order there. At least, not in the most detailed sense, but I actually spent all morning practicing this build myself and wrecking some Protoss face with it. So it is written up in a way which is meant for me to understand. Hopefully you guys can decipher my notes as well. Not every single depot is listed or anything like that, but the important points are there. So what you want to do is you want to start queuing up Reapers, and you want to send your... Oh, actually, Uthermal doesn't send the SCV in. Okay, I like to send my SCV in to try and get an idea of have they expanded yet or not. What's interesting in this game is Neeb. If we check it out, so Neeb comes in right at about, I think, a minute 40. So it looks like he's... Yeah, but he was already planning... Whoa. Sorry, guys. That moment where you say something and then you're like, I really need to double check if what I just said is true. Okay, yeah, he scouts pretty early. So it's a standard gate gas, but he's probably going to be going for the Nexus. Yeah, he's planning to take a Nexus, probably. Does he just scout with this? Yeah, he's gonna go for a Nexus, but then he scouts in the main, he sees double gas, he sees there's no barracks, he's like, oh shit, it's a proxy. Neeb makes the intelligent reaction and says, oh, don't put down a Nexus, make sure we save the money to put down a Cyber Core the second this gateway finishes. Put 3 guys on gas, and let's also get a second pylon and a second gas immediately, so that he can get out a Mothership Core, an Adept, and then also get some tech out as well to make sure he's safe against any follow-up. So very safe response after scouting the fact that it's a proxy barracks. Uthermal, queuing up a second Reaper, but before that, he got the money to put down a Factory. Factory goes down immediately with 100 gas, still just building SCVs. Of course, he made the first Reaper and the Orbital on 19 supply. Very standard opening, it's just your barracks is on the other side of the map. Now the Reapers come in, and he wants to just try and focus down as many probes as possible. Already grabs one. Nice Reaper bombs kind of zoning. Good micro from Neeb though. You'll notice he always forces the Reaper back so he can't get to these weakened probes, and tries to pull the weakened probes right back. Actually not getting a Mothership Core and just rushing out the Adept. Interesting choice there from Neeb. Maybe partly because he had to pull off gas, not 100% sure. But anyway, you do build a second Reaper, and this barracks immediately lifts up and flies home. Back at home, factory builds a tech lab, and whoop-de-doo, you proxied here, wherever the opposite spot on the map is, you proxy on the other side of Starport the second that factory finishes as well. These Reapers want to continue being annoying. Now, ooh, does end up losing a Reaper there. You've got to make sure you keep this other Reaper alive, because it's very important he scouts what the tech is. And that's what's really important with this build, is no matter what, he's going to build a Cyclone at home, but it's very important what he does with this Starport. Because basically, he needs to see that. If it's Stargate, he wants to go for Cloaked Banshees. So he sees the Stargate and he says, ah, okay, it's Stargate. Immediately puts down a tech lab. He's going to go Cloaked Banshees because he knows there won't be observers out very early. Likewise, if it's Robo, he knows there will be observers. Cloaked Banshees won't be as useful, so he would just build 1 to 2 Liberators out of this Starport if it was a Robotics. And that just makes sense, alright guys? Just having a couple of little reactions, making sure you're adjusting to what your opponent's doing. And I can tell you, it's pretty gross how that works out. Now, one thing about this map specifically, though, is Liberators are not as powerful here because there isn't much dead space. The Liberator here can easily get shot by Stalkers. There's no gap kind of between there. Like, if you set up a Liberator like here, you can easily get shot from either side. Whereas some maps, you can kind of get around the mineral line and have these really abusive positions where you can deny patches without really exposing the lib. As it is, though, out comes the Cyclone. Puts down the command center. Remember, after the Cyclone starts and the Starport and everything, only then does he put down the command center, usually at about 30 supply, about 3 minutes to 3 minutes 10, somewhere around there. Reaper's continuing to be annoying to get scouting and to try and see what's going on is going to finally go down. And in this scenario, Euthermal only went for a single Cyclone. Now, sometimes you might go for 2 Cyclones. As we're going to see in one of Kelazhur's games, sometimes you go for like 5 Cyclones, and you even get the upgrade for the Cyclones. But that's normally if you're up against a very one-base heavy Protoss. It's not really taking an expansion, especially if you're worried about like a proxy Stargate or something like that, where you know the early game is going to kind of drag out. But in this game, Euthermal said, look, I've seen he's expanded. I've seen the Stargate. I know he's going into a standard game. Let's just use 1 Cyclone to block any Oracles, and we'll be fine with that. Unfortunately for him, Cyclone was a little bit out of position for defending the main. Of course, wanted to cover the natural as well. It does lose 6 SCVs, but gets the Oracle for it, so it's a decent trade. Behind this, already has 1 Banshee. And where is that? That Banshee's there. So he's just banking both Banshees to come out with a surprise maneuver. Adding 2 more barracks. And what's very important is the second that cloak finishes and this Banshee comes out, is he going to rotate it around, or is he going to... I think he's going to hit 2 different bases separately. So I think he's going to cloak... he's got a cloak so that Neeb doesn't see it. No, he's just going to go right in. Okay, that's how he does it. Immediately lifts the Starport and starts bailing on out of there. That's very important, because he needs that to get medevacs for his follow-up push. Now, obviously, the Oracle died. There's no Observer out just yet. Observer comes out just in time, only loses 5 probes there. This Banshee here only got 1 probe as well. Pretty sick hold out of Neeb. Only lost 5 probes there. So Neeb, super on top of getting out that Observer, kind of covering his bases, making sure he was safe, did a very good job. As a result, this didn't actually work out that fantastically. But what I really like about this game is Euthermal's follow-up. He goes for a super all-in follow-up, straight to 5 barracks. Of course, wants 3 tech labs and 2 reactors. He wants to go stim, combat shields, around the same time, adding on concussive afterwards. The factory, I know a lot of Terran players, if you're confused about what your factory does in the build, keep in mind, the factory, it can build a Widow Mine or 2 if you want to, but usually its job is to build add-ons for these extra barracks. If we watch what it does, it builds a tech lab, which another barracks will swap onto, and then it goes and builds another add-on. And sometimes you can even get it to build 2 add-ons before building the reactor for itself, which it'll eventually build and start pumping out Widow Mines. Of course, you will need a, depending on how much gas you've banked up, sometimes you'll need a 3rd gas earlier rather than other games. In this game, Euthermal's just staying on 2 gas for a long time because he's got plenty of gas in the bank because he only built 1 Cyclone. So keep in mind, you only build 1 Cyclone, you don't need to take your gas as fast at your natural. Now, this is something which I was doing all day today when I was playing the build, which is not flying the starport all the way home, and especially on Apotheosis, because it's such a long map, this makes sense. Fly it down to a corner of the map, they'll have assumed it's flown home, and start pumping out medevacs, because especially if you're doing this 2-base kind of big 5 barracks, bio, mine follow-up, you really do need to catch them, you do need to catch them at a specific timing. If that starport gets all the way home, then builds medevacs, you're just not going to have the medevacs and liberators you need to make the push work. Euthermal, wanting to keep the pressure up because he knows Neeb's a greedy, greedy boy, is actually going to push right across this map. And he's going to try and get some work done. But the Adept Phoenix defense, actually pretty good here for Neeb. So he's going to be forced to lift and start running away. But notice here, 4 medevacs are out. Ooh, might even catch a Phoenix, let's see. Yeah, it does get a Phoenix. And he's going to start double Liberator production. And this is very important, because he's doing a 2-base all-in. He doesn't need 6 or 8 medevacs. You don't need longevity with this push. All you need is to friggin' kill them if you're doing it this way. Now, you could go 3rd command center rather than going straight up to 5 barracks. You could say go to 3 barracks, command center, get double engineering bay, then add more barracks. And in that case, you don't need to be quite as all-in with it. But the way this is being played out, you absolutely need to do that. Yes, there's a +1 upgrade on the way that Euthermal's getting. He's got the engineering bay, of course. You always need that in case your opponent does go DTs. Something which I was skipping out on a lot today, especially when I was first doing this build. But here we go. We've got 2 reactors pumping out Marines, 3 tech labs pumping out Marauders. He's actually building a lot of Marines on these. Normally you build more Marauders. The reason, of course, is Marines have sick damage output for crushing Adepts, and he needs Marines to fight the Phoenix as well. So he's actually kind of changing it up and going for a mostly Marine composition, rather than the more typical Marauders. You might think, well, don't Adepts beat Marines? But if you think about it, you've got Widow Mines and Libs with this push, and they're going to just like wreck Adepts for the most part. So you really just need to make sure you have enough Marines. Like, it's all about having just an insane amount of damage output with this timing to crush over your opponent. You're not looking for longevity in your army. And especially on this map, you can really abuse this cliff, but really on any map, you can make this sort of 2-base follow-up work. If there wasn't such a great position here to abuse, I'm very sure, you know, Euthermal might drop a single medevac in the main, run in there, you know, force the overcharges, pick up, boost down to the natural. But 2 things are why he's very much focused on the front. Number 1, lots of Adepts. Number 2, Phoenix. So Phoenix is going to be good for shutting down drops. Adepts are going to be good for shutting things down. It's a pretty mobile Protoss army. But if he has the right positioning, he has the numbers, then he should be able to overwhelm it, as long as he has everything together. So he's just going to abuse this ledge a good amount. Some very nice pickups and so on. Oh, these Adepts on the flank. Oh, man. The Widow Mines, I mean. And keep in mind, he's still building Liberators, and just Marines and Marauders. 2-base, completely all in. And he's just saying, look, as long as you don't have a 3rd, you're not going to be able to keep up. Let's just keep doing damage, keep on dancing around here. I know you've got lower tech units than the Liberators. You don't have anything like even Blink to deal with this. And Euthermal's just going to jump into the main base, and of course, Freedom Zones on top of the ramp. Even saves this red hit point Liberator from the Phoenix that tried to YOLO onto it. Stims down there, and yeah, just pulls back the 1 exposed Liberator. Very well played. Nothing Neeb can do. GG. Now, there's a couple little things I want to talk about quickly. The first one is open cut muling. So if you're doing a 2-base all-in, I really think you need to be doing open cut muling. I know I haven't really done like a follow-up video talking about my findings in the weeks since then. I've been doing it on and off with my Terran play. I haven't been laddering that much. Obviously, I've been traveling a lot the last few months, but when I do it, I do find it gives a really big bonus. And I think especially with this sort of build, you definitely can benefit from that. So let's take a look in game. If you guys aren't familiar with open cut muling, go check out daily number, I think it was like 50 or 51? I think 51. I'll try to remember to put an annotation on screen for you, you lazy people who can't type Pig Daily 51 into into YouTube. I'll try to remember to put that annotation up. But okay, you're pushing hard, you're all in on 2-base. Now I really think there's an argument for the doing open cut muling. Now, what that basically would mean is during the early stages, he should have dropped 2 mules on these close patches. So rather than having 200 to 500 minerals left on these, they'd all be almost completely mined out. And he could just lift the main base over to the third. Now, I'd probably move it to the gold, but you could move it there since it's a closer distance. The downside of this method is always you're losing gas income for that 30 seconds it takes to move. So you need to have a little bit of extra gas banked up so that you don't have to freeze things like Liberator production. But you can always squeeze in a gas on your fourth around the 7-minute mark. A fourth gas around the 7-minute mark, sometimes even a little bit earlier. Get a little bit of extra gas bank, lift this up, move it there, box all your workers, send them down, build 2 more gases. And your mining will actually stabilize like really well. As opposed to what we see instead in this game, if we look at the income, let's go back to about 6 minutes. So is he fully saturated on the 2 base? Almost. Okay, about 7 minutes is when we start to see the difference. So we see here 7 minutes, 2,400 minerals a minute mining. Now obviously there's 2 mules mining right now. That does influence this. But now, let's fast forward and watch as around the 8-minute mark, these faraway patches start to run out. We're going to start to see the workers being a little bit less efficient there. Right now, there's just no mules. The income tab's always a liar's turn. Let's not even look at that. Just trust me, guys. Trust me. These patches are going to run out at 8 minutes. So 8 minutes is when these far patches start running out. 8 minutes 30 because we went on double gas with this build. So it takes a little bit longer than normal. 8 minutes 39 minutes is when it'll start happening. And the minerals start running out. And we're going to start to see the income from about this 9-minute mark to 11-minute mark dip really hard by a couple hundred minerals a minute. And we see it sitting down at about 1,500. Of course, using scans at the front and so on at this point. So that does affect it. But you do lose a couple hundred minerals a minute. I think with any dedicated 2-base all-in, lift your base, move it down to the other one, have that fourth gas prepared to handle it. And it's going to allow you to pump out a lot more units in the long run. That being said, because this is such a sharp timing, there is an argument for saying screw it, ignore having that hiccup, just stay in the main right up until about the 11-minute mark, let the whole thing mine out the normal way, and then move it. And that's not the worst thing in the world because then you have absolutely no interruption, but it does make it even more all in what you're doing. Gives you less of a transition. Anyway, guys, that's about all we wanted to look at in terms of that replay. Let's see if there's any questions in chat while we open up our next game, because these are all old replays, even the ones from like a week ago at WCS Mexico. There aren't going to be, there's going to be like a little bit of downtime while it changes versions. But let's have a think about this build, all right? So we got to see then the version where you go cloaked banshees. They didn't actually do that much damage. Some games though, imagine if Neeb's Robo was like 30 seconds later. His observer was crossing the map, or maybe 30 seconds earlier, and his observer's crossing the map and he's built a warp prism afterwards. There's a lot of scenarios like this where it's like your banshees rock up and you just pretty much win the game with them. So it's a really cute kind of surprise follow-up. Likewise, cyclones can also be joining into the harassment. They can come down, hit the front, and charge in there and do a lot of cool shiz. So let's get these WCS Mexico Day 1 replays. We want Cyan versus Kelazhur, and let me check my notes. Which game do we want to watch first? We want to watch Galactic Game 1. Okay. Awesome. So what we're going to see in this game, guys, is an example of Cyan being already very one-base oriented, even before realizing what Kelazhur is up to, like already opening up with the fast core, the fast double gas. And Kelazhur's reaction to this is to actually get the mag field upgrade for the Cyclones. And he goes Liberators because he is up against... He goes Liberators because he is up against a Robotics, whereas in that last game, remember, it was Banshees because he was up against Stargate first. Show Flyer Helper always. Show you unit bars. Damaged. Hotkeys. Let's put those on as well. Put those on standard hotkeys so I can rotate that camera for you guys. Yeah, so let's fast forward through. Exact same opening. SCV goes straight across the map, starts building a barracks down in the low ground here, goes for a gas and then a 17-second gas behind it. So it is barracks, gas, into factory. Reaper's on the way. Now keep in mind, Kelazhur with this, He has a little scout around with that SCV. Before the Reaper was even out, he had a little scout around. Had a look through that base, saw it was this one base orientation. And does kind of change gears just a little bit from being the typically crazy aggressive style. Does manage to get a whole bunch of probes here. Cyan, first game on stage in a big foreign tournament outside of China. And panicked a bit there and screwed up his probe micro. 4 probes is way more than a top pro gamer should be losing. In my experience practicing against the Masters players on ladder today, I would kill anywhere between 2 and 12 probes, depending on how much they shat the bed when the Reaper pops into their base so early. But once again, guys, proxy that starport on a different side from where the barracks was popped. And you'll go straight for the factory, and he does start getting mag field. Now, I remember talking to Kelazhur. I sent him a message, but he's traveling to Kings of the North at the moment, so he didn't actually get back to me yet. I'll add an annotation if he gives me any wisdom. But I was asking him, I was like, why do you build magfield? Is that because he's on one base, or is it specifically the pylon rush? Because obviously that helps you chew through pylons very quickly. I couldn't remember what he said, so I've asked him again, and he hasn't got back to me. I'll let you guys know when he does tell me. But we see he cancelled it there, and the reason is he knew this pylon was going to be able to snipe that before it finished, so he said, well, no point, might as well just get extra money, start building some extra barracks back here to make sure I don't die to this rush. Tries to rebuild the tech lab, and he does get this cyclone down. So he's going to try and lock onto the adept there. Almost loses the cyclone. Meanwhile, his Reapers were being very annoying. He killed a total of 4 probes still only, and he did get both Reapers home, actually. Now, I don't know if he just assumes it's a robo. I think he just assumes it's a robo follow-up because he doesn't spot it. And definitely Liberator's not a bad choice if they're going Stargate. Like, it's not the worst choice, a single Liberator. But he ended up opting for that. Comes in with this Liberator. The Reapers can join in with the pressure, and this is where things get really cool a lot of the time. What you guys can find is sometimes you build multiple Cyclones and they hit the front at the same time as the Reapers jump in and Liberators hit the mineral lines. And this is where you start to think about all of the crazy possibilities that this opening gives you. Yes, it can be secretive Cloaked Banshees. It can be Liberators hitting. If you keep these Reapers alive, it's amazing. If you go 3 or 4 Cyclones... Shit, I've really got to turn that off. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm almost deaf to that follow warning, because it just happened, you know, obviously I'm so used to it. So let me just turn the follow notifications off. Sometimes I forget to do that. Disabled. Save. Thank you. I really appreciate the follows, but I just wanted to make sure that gets shut down. It's like the Day 9 Daily, except we get Arnold talking about coming. Yes. Professional, amazing gaming right here, guys. But anyway, this is where you throw the kitchen sink at your opponent. This is obviously the Reapers already can throw people off. They can get big damage done. But here is where things can really explode. And we see here in this game, and don't, if you haven't heard of Cyan, by the way, do not underestimate this guy. He is the hope of China. And for a long time, players would say, whatever, he's just another Chinese Protoss player. He's not ever going to build a 3rd Nexus. He's just going to cheese every game. But Cyan is a macro beast. He ended up beating Kelazhur 3-2 in this series. He ended up actually having 3 incredibly close games against Neeb, even though it was a 0-3 as well here at Copa. He actually had a pretty bunch of close games against Nurture, where he lost 1-3 at IM Shanghai as well. So Cyan is an absolute beast, and yet right there, he just lost 8 probes on top of the 4 he'd already lost. The Liberator gets out of there, and Kelazhur is actually going to build another Liberator. I'm surprised he didn't do that earlier or move this home, but of course, he was dealing with a lot of chaos back home. He was still clearing up those pylons. Only now has he been able to put down his command center. So you might think, man, this is a pretty stunted, janky position. You've got 2 barracks, a factory, and a starport on their side of the map. But this is your comfort zone. You've got Cyclones, which give you some sick mobility. He could actually be out there harassing if you wanted to, being a little bit annoying on the map, have some map control. Just keeping them at home, of course, to be safe. But what really does Cyan have? He's down in workers against mules dropping as well, so obviously his income's way down. He doesn't really have much infrastructure or tech up either, so not a fantastic position for him. Kelazhur, continuing to poke with the Liberators, is just going to keep on looking for these sick little bits of damage. And in this game, he actually chooses a macro follow-up. So notice, you don't need to go 2 base all in off this opening. You can throw the kitchen sink at them, and then you can, you can pull your pants back up, you can calm yourself down, sit back down at your macro desk, chill out a little bit, build a third command center, and this is where building a couple siege tanks is actually going to be amazing. Obviously, tanks are so good at shutting down Protoss aggression. Like I said, Cyclones can control the map a little bit, but they're actually a bit caught out right now. He was sending a Liberator through into the main, managed to get into a sweet spot, did lose one Cyclone, the other one gets away, but look at this Liberator just being so annoying, so much mining time lost. Another two probes go down. This Stalker will be able to run over and kill that finally. But at the same time, another Liberator sets up there. He should focus fire the sentries or the probes. Yep. Gets a Stalker, gets a sentry, gets even more probes. And it's just so much potential damage you can do here to Protoss. From here, he just turtles up and then just wins the game. He's just infinitely ahead. After killing a total of 15 workers, when Cyan wasn't really playing that macro heavy in the first place, he's in a fantastic position. Cyan tries to do like a 2-base blink push with Immortals and Sentries. Not a bad choice, but the Marines and tanks are just a little bit too good against it. He scans ahead, so he's coming down to do this Marine tank push. He's like, yeah, dropping tanks on the low ground there, elevating Marines is sick. Sees no third and realizes, oh shit, let's get out of here, man. This is dangerous. Like, if he doesn't have a third, he could pounce on my army and kill me. I've actually done a macro build. This was just meant to be a poking pressure to force an overreaction more than anything. Instead, falls back. He's added on the up to 5 barracks. He's got double medevac production on the way. He even builds a 4th siege tank. And he's getting his +1 armor off that single eBay. So you absolutely have the capability of just calming down after that opening. And from here, it's pretty simple stuff. So guys, please do shout out any questions, any things that you want to cover up, that you want to have covered or talk about. Any queries about the style. I'm going to start brainstorming about some of the more interesting scenarios that occur while we watch the rest of this. So let's think about this build, guys. What is the weakness of this build? Well, what if they scout the starport? Oh shit, there's a video about this build now. People are going to know how to stop it. If someone proxies Reapers, maybe I should check everywhere for proxied starports. Maybe that could be very annoying. If your opponent sees you going cloaked Banshees, of course, they're always going to have the robo down in time like Neeb did. Likewise, if they see you building Liberators there, they can have pylons and Stalkers in position to shut it down. However, you cannot underestimate how difficult it is for Protoss in the midst of the Reapers being annoying, in the midst of Cyclones shutting down any counter pressure and controlling the map. How hard it is for Protoss to gauge exactly what's happening and what's coming their way. And so, even though the opening really only has the one variation difference of, well, you either go for Liberators or you go for Banshees, I can very easily see there be the same sort of opening with different transitions off it if Protoss players were to start, say, blind countering this and just always preparing for, you know, Liberators or Banshees or both. But it's one of these interesting things where I feel like a lot of the strength of this build is throwing your opponent off, and I think that fits perfectly with how Terran players are trying to play against Protoss right now. And as someone myself who's playing on both sides of the spectrum at, you know, just like a mid-masters level, I'm not amazing with Terran or Protoss. It's something where I feel like there's so much strength in that for Terran, where you really don't want to just let Protoss be completely comfortable. We saw early on in probably about March of this year, Zest was absolutely unstoppable and godlike in PvT. And a big part of why he was so unstoppable is because he was always able to just take a really fast third, get double forge, defend with the bare minimum, and then, you know, explode in this super refined, efficient way where he's like, I've got 4 bases finished at 9 minutes with mining with 70 probes and 400 Adepts and Blink Stalkers. By the way, I'm also getting Storm and Tempest behind this. And he's just like, yeah. And I think Terran players, we saw this whole period where everyone was doing these like 1 base all-ins. We saw Cyclone Widowmine cheeses, which I was showing you guys the video of before. We saw people do like tank evac, bunker rushes with a single Liberator. All these crazy builds to take advantage of the fact that the Protoss players weren't covering themselves against every single option. They were playing a little bit greedy. So as a result, I think this is kind of these are the builds you kind of need to throw in there to throw Protoss players off and really keep them in the dark on their side of the map so that they don't have the information, they don't know what's coming their way. If you sit back too long, it always is a little bit scary, a little bit frightening against Protoss. So I think this sort of build's really cool. It's also got so many different opportunities for your opponent to slip up and then just like, I don't know, crack their head open and die in a puddle of their own Banshee spraying blood. You know, like Widow Mines can come in, the Liberators, the Banshees. There's so many opportunities to just destroy your opponent, and you can just do that filthy 2-base all-in follow-up. So there's so many different ways that you can actually win the game. Once again, sorry guys, do have to get the settings all correct every single time I open up a new replay because it is an old patch. And we have the settings right one more time. So let's dive on into the last game. I want to show you guys. In the replay, the glaive icon is still the old one? Oh, really? Was that from the first one? I'm not sure. So anyway, we see him do the exact same build here. Kelazhur, floating the barracks home after 2 Reapers. Exact same stuff. But what's the difference? Why is there an engineering bay and a turret going down this early? Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's go back right to the start. And let's talk about some different scenarios and how you can play it out. And I really like the way Kelazhur plays this out because I like it when people build 5 Cyclones with the upgrade. It makes me happy. I like some mag field accelerator, man. So notice how Euthermal often hid the SCV, but Kelazhur likes to send it in, get a bit of scout, and he sees, whoa, you don't have a Nexus. You've gone core and double gas. Uh-oh. And he immediately knows there could be some sneaky shenanigans up. Let's actually go back just a little bit. Did he see the timing of that second pylon? I think he might have. Oh, this is really clever. So Cyan here, in order to cover up what he's doing with his build, actually builds 2 second pylons. So he builds a second and a third pylon at the same time. So the SCV coming in is going to see this second pylon and not know that it's a proxy. But Kelazhur is like, nah, you've got this up. You could still put down a Stargate incredibly fast. F this, I'm playing safe. And which is the right decision because check it out. There's a Stargate proxy down here. And it's very smart of Kelazhur to react that way. I think it's also because he doesn't see anything in here with his Reaper. And he's just like, what are you up to, man? You don't have a Nexus, you don't have tech down, you don't have a second gateway. Like he knows that something is missing in this base. Drops the engineering bay and says, I'm not sure my Cyclone's going to be ready. Even when it is ready, let's have turrets just in case it's DTs. He doesn't know which one it is. And he's already telling that barracks to come and land back at home. Mag field, mag field, mag field. Come on! You know you want to. Ooh, that was interesting. The Adept from Cyan. Cyan studied Kelazhur. He played against this, of course, in game number 1 of this set. And this time he actually cancels the starport. Sick win there for Cyan. No Liberators or Banshees are going to be arriving in his mineral line. And as a result, Kelazhur actually has to rebuild the starport at home. Now this is something, if you are playing someone who's very one-base heavy, you can always choose to play a bit more conservatively and put the starport at home. However, oh, doesn't quite get that Oracle. However, I still think, you know, unless your opponent actually scouts for it, having that starport up there is so sick because you have the potential to do so much damage. And remember, guys, the whole build is about throwing the kitchen sink at your opponent. It's not about taking it easy and playing all calm and relaxed. It's about trying to kill your opponent as chaotically and as quickly as possible. So I like that Kelazhur, even after seeing it was very one-base, he still tried to proxy that starport. He's going to put down his command center, and he's just going to build a lot of Cyclones and just go absolutely crazy. Fatality in chat is saying the safe timing for an eBay is normally 2 minutes 40. This one's quite early, but it's because he scouted and saw that there was nothing in the base. He saw that there was no Nexus, so he knew that he had to be very safe. Good point, good point. And yeah, this is kind of cool. He just kind of turtles up with Cyclones. Cyan, of course, you know, goes heavy on the Oracles, tries to take advantage that way. But Kelazhur just plays it really safe. Makes sure he can't get overwhelmed by, say, the Adept shading on top while the Oracles dive in. And Cyan keeps diving in, grabbing a few workers really efficiently. But in the midst of this, a cloaked Banshee has actually snuck across the map, killed 4 probes, and is forcing a huge amount of mining time to be lost. Knowing that it's Stargate, you always want to commit to Banshee, cloaked Banshee against Stargate opening. And this Banshee does monstrous damage, 12 kills, another one arrives at that base. Total of 18 workers killed. And even when Cyan scouted the starport, even when he knew this build was coming, he still is taking massive damage. And look at this, even a third Banshee, hiding it around the edge of the map. This is such a good thing to do. If these oracles happen to be on the other side of the map, you could kill another 10 probes, you could waste a huge amount of mining time. Unfortunately for him, the Phoenix aren't too far away, only gets 4 probes, but that's 4 probes off an already stunted economy. So that's actually well worth it. Kelazhur can afford off his 40 drone, 4 gas economy to throw away some Banshees. But, you know, Cyan definitely can't afford to lose a couple probes here. And once again, Cyan's kind of like trying to get somewhat aggressive on 2 base, but with a siege tank, 5 mag field cyclones once again. And we've got 3 barracks, tank, and medevac production going. It's just sick control and defense from Kelazhur. Nothing Cyan can do aggressively. But he's committed to so many aggressive units, he's kind of dedicated to trying to make something happen. And keep in mind, because Kelazhur senses the position he's in, where just constant unit production to both keep him safe and hit a counterattack is important, doesn't rush the 4th and 5th barracks. He's getting upgrades, he's already got +1 weapons, he's going to be getting siege tanks producing constantly, medevacs, marauders, and marines. So he's just kind of like, yeah, just keep building units. And then he does drop that 3rd command center as well. Where does he drop that? There it is. And by the time he pushes, it's all ogre. It's all ogre, guys. Nice stasis traps. Even grabs. Oh, doesn't quite get the siege tank. Thought he was going to get it. He's trying to slow the push down because he knows he can't fight it front on. And one of the advantages of having siege tanks is you can just once again abuse a ledge like this. It's like, hey, attack through this choke point. It's got the cyclones as well, which obviously can just lock on and kite units back and forwards. GG's. Overwhelmed. So let's go back to the crucial point in that game at about 6 minutes when that Banshee escapes across the map. Check this out. Let's watch Kelazhur's camera. Killer God, man. Okay. First Banshee's on the way, so we 8 times speed it. Now that Banshee... The Banshee's out. Let's see what he does with it. So he's like, okay, send it out the right. Send it out the right. Then he's like, there's an adept here. Okay, yeah, sees the air units. So he's like, okay, cool. So keeping track of where those oracles were, takes the risk, but sneaks that Banshee out. And then, seeing the oracles were here, sends this one just straight across the map. No F's given, man. Massive damage. Sick damage. And yeah, these Banshees really were the thing that sealed the deal. Kitchen sink Banshees, the best kind of Banshees. Ones that come out of you after your opponent's opened up Proxy Reaper and then Cyclones. Pretty sick build. Total of 25 workers killed this game. 23 probes left for Cyan. And that's about it, guys. Whoa. When I pressed insert, it changed my overlay. Whoops. All right, guys. So that's going to be pretty much the end of the show. Enjoy doing that build. It's amazing. Like I said, there's different variations, but the main thing you want to follow is just the build order we talked through in the first game. When you're learning it, I really recommend just going straight up to 5 barracks and doing an all-in with your first 4 medevacs and then 2 liberators. That's like the timing. You can definitely pressure before then. Sometimes you can win before then. But once you've got the 2 liberators, you should have 4 or more widow mines out, 4 medevacs, good sized bio ball, and that's when your army thrives. Keep in mind, with the starport, always proxy it, always try to go for the proxy with this build, but if they're going robo, you want to be going for liberators. Yeah, you want to be going for liberators. If they're going Stargate, you want to be going for banshees because they're not going to have that detection. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the build. Hopefully that can help some of you Terrans against the filthy, filthy Protoss and all of their dirty shenanigans that they've been doing. Thanks for hanging out. Hope you guys enjoyed this walkthrough of the build and looking at these games. I'll catch you guys next time. Don't forget to hug a watermelon, kick a walrus, and of course, punch a watermelon to the moon. I'll catch you guys next time. Goodbye and good night.